Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon for some places, and even in some places who might be lucky to be seeing us now, might even be morning. Welcome to another edition of what I like to call Under the Spotlight. This evening we're featuring Ms. Venesha Phillips, Councillor Venesha Phillips. She's a councillor with the City of Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Councils. And in recent times, she made some moves which kind of sent some shockwaves through the People's National Party system, again, following up on, say, one that took place with an earlier senior member. But I'm not going to speak of anybody else right now but Miss Venesha Phillips. Your friend, I think, called you Ven. And if you don't mind, I might even call you that too. Venesha. All right. Venesha, you have been with the People's National Party. You're a fairly young woman. You've been with the party for a long time. How long have you been with the party?
I'm a fairly young woman. Thank you for that. I don't consider myself so young. But no. But I've been here since birth. Actually, I was born into the People's National Party. My father was an activist of the party, foot soldier, and he was Deputy General Secretary of the PNPYO. I mean, I guess Chip knows, but I fought very well. You know, in terms of that, I would have walked his road and became Vice President of the PNPYO. But I have been there prior to YO, you know, with elderly women in the community that I grew up, where you probably had to do some of the reading and stuff for them as a kid and to take notes. And so the truth be told is that my entire socialization has been with the movement of the People's National Party, directed by Michael Manley through the inspiration of his father and others, you know, the Right Honorable Norman Washington Manley. And so I have I have fully bought into, having come into my own as an adult, I've fully bought into the ideology of democratic socialism. I do hold very strong also, because there's a difference, socialist principles that I'm unapologetic about, but I'm a realist. And I understand that the gentle balance that we speak in order to exist properly in a world that is not exclusive to Jamaica, democratic socialism is in fact the most, you know, appropriate vehicle for any country like Jamaica, any democracy that wants to see development take place among its people at every level. Then democratic socialism would have been the vehicle ultimately that would take us to that point. And so I bought into that. So my entire socialization has been with the People's National Party. I'm a comrade. I will always be a comrade.
You, even though you don't consider yourself young, but what stage of your life were you when Michael Manley walked first?
I was a child actually, but can I tell you something? I was a child. I have very clear memories because where I lived in McGregor Gully, right in the center there, Paul Burke will tell you, was called Moscow Square. That's where the stage was put for Michael Manley. The back of the stage, my gate was the back of the stage always, but there was no backing on it. So, you know, you were directly able to stand on the veranda or sit on the veranda and look at Michael Manley. It was everything about him, you know. Comrade John Jr., by the way, who later became a representative in the area by way of candidacy, you know, him too, Eric Bell and all of them. So I was a child, but I remember everything that used to happen there. That time politics was festive. Yes, it bordered on dangerous because, you know, you were coming out of the 70s and into the 80s. And so you had the whole ideological warfare going on. The JLP and the PNP were at it. I think everyone knows that East Kingston and where that was Southeast St. Andrew, but I think by that time it was called something else. But the whole of that area was, you know, always very active, very spirited, and had a lot of violence sometimes politically. But yeah, so I would have had the experience of having DK Duncan, John Jr., all the people who really fought for this movement at one point or another on my veranda, at my gate. As I said, my father was an organizer, so I was right there in the mix as a kid. And at the time, it's Sakalu's little daughter, Bowen's little daughter. So I was right there up in it's everything. So you understand that this is who I am. And I'm not going to trade that now.
And to give away some of my age in itself, I want to let you know that I was a childhood associate, or I would even consider it a friend of your father, because we went to primary school together.
Ooh,
so,
interesting.
And that's when you're saying you're young. You're not young. I don't consider myself old, but I know you're not that old as you want to make it. All right, so I know some of your business. All right.
So I see. You knew my father. Wow.
Yeah. I grew up on First Avenue.
Oh.
And on First Avenue.
Yeah.
Yes. So then, in fact, he came. Boris Gardner was my neighbor, and Boris used to train him at one point.
So you really are from the East.
Yes, and that's how we call ourselves. We're from the East, or we're from the West.
Yes, you really are from the East. Yes.
All right. So people who think they want to cheat and say they're from Kingston, even they're from somewhere else.
Yes.
They would have to know these kinds of stories to know.
Right, to know that they're from the East. Yes.
Right. So, I know you said you're under pressure with time this evening, so I want to just kind of jump into things. Maybe hopefully another time we can spend a little time and chit chat more on all these, the foundation of your time with the PNP. You recently made a big announcement that you're stepping away from the party. What does this mean? Are you done with the PNP? Are you just want to be just somebody like myself who's out there, a supporter, but not necessarily up in that exit? What is it where are you now with it?
I don't know if it's a big announcement, but it was a painful one for certain. Let me just tell you what that meant. I took the decision, first of all, some time ago, but since Mark Golden assumed the reins of the party, I would have, gone to the town clerk of the KSAC to indicate to him preliminarily that I would be giving him a letter to ask him to cease payments to the PNP from the direct contributions taken from councillors' salaries. I put him on notice, and then I subsequently sent him that letter and asked him to hold on to the letter until further advised. Of course, I did that because at the time I was still hoping that as a party we would have been able to find some ground that could cause us to move closer towards, if not unity, a common understanding that would be sufficient to allow us to function as a viable alternative to what we have as a government. I waited, I watched, I intervened from time to time in issues that I considered to be vexed issues. And still all I got was confirmation that I was right, that Mark Golden was really not interested in pursuing any genuine cause that would lead to some commonplace. Notice I'm not even using the term unity because I'm very deliberate about that. But he was not prepared to find that place of balance from which we could operate even respectfully, to allow us to be able to appear to the people of Jamaica to be, a platform that they could look to as an alternative. And when I didn't see that, I asked for a meeting with the mayor, and I indicated to him that I had given this letter to the town clerk and what that would mean. I think for a moment he thought probably that meant crossing, because I don't think anyone had in their mind, though he never said it, I don't think he was laughing because I think he thought I was pranking him when I said it may require you as the head of council, the chairman of council, to arrange alternate seating for me. And I said to him, Mayor, I would prefer if you took that look off your face, because it would mean an independent seating. Because like at Stafford, that's something I poured over. And I've looked at the way Mark Golden has approached his presidency. And I think the turning point for me was when I saw Comrade Dini Peart, no less a person than Comrade Dini Peart. You know why? Because I remember Comrade Peart and I just could not see eye to eye, because Comrade Peart thought that I was not pretty much, allowing the Mark Golden leadership to settle first before I was critical, kind of some issues that I knew at the time, Stafford, were genuine issues, and that these had nothing to do with allowing a Mark Golden to settle into the presidency. And later on, my greatest fears, because I don't think people understand, it is not a moment for any of us to celebrate in the PNP now.
No,
It isn't a celebrating moment right now. So for me, when I woke up to messages one morning that Dina Peart had gone on Facebook, the same Dina Peart who used to hold me to account and say, do not do it this way, felt that he had no other choice. I sat back that morning in my bed and I said, God, there is a reason this happened, because it had to, to come home to comrades like Comrade Peart, that there were some real situations here, and until they were faced with it, it was because I was early out of the blocks and I tried what they would have tried later. But I knew from early, I had the experience from early, that there was no interest on the part of Mark Golden to fix the PNP in that way. So when I saw that this was now the experience of Comrade Peart, as he declared through his post and later that video, I said to myself, okay, when a senior comrade like this has to resort to putting his feelings there, then I know that, we have trouble. And I said to myself, I spoke to Dr. Phillips even after, and I said to him, I really don't feel like I will be able to help the movement at this time. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, of course, he's going to always encourage you to continue to try to find a way. But as I said to him, at this particular time, I have looked at it every way and at every angle, and I saw no way to actually be able to help, because sometimes you just have to allow things to the chips to fall where they may.
Step back and let things fall in place.
Right. So at that point, I notified the town clerk to activate my letter, and I think he forgot to notify the accounts department. So last month, when I saw that he had not actioned it, it so happened that the Karen Cross situation, coincided with that. And when I saw the response of the executive, because I read carefully something I saw on social media, where I think it was Horace Daly being quoted as saying that the disciplinary committee had not recommended expulsion of the comrade, but the executive decided to do this. Then what that said to me was that, okay, so you put a disciplinary committee in place, but you had no confidence in that disciplinary committee, that you felt that you had to overstep and you felt like they didn't go far enough. So what was the point of your allowing that process to obtain? It shows again the disregard for processes, and it goes against everything that we stand for as a movement, because this is a democratic space. It does not mean that it must be a space where people just run amok, but it has to be a space where dissenting views are allowed at minimum to be ventilated, so that you can even hear another perspective. Part of our problem struggling as a party over the last couple of years, and this is not with Mark Golding, so I'm not going to necessarily as his feet only, but part of our problem as a party, and I've been saying it at nauseum at NEC's executive, I've been bawling. I go to executive at NEC and I said, look here, if we continue to listen to our own voices, we're going to be losing election after election after election, right? The thing is, the GLP is going to have to mess up so bad for Jamaicans to consider us, and I was saying this before Mark came, because I saw that there was a trajectory that we were on as comrades. And it is still happening now, with comrades on the ground, is that when you say anything that look like it will rub the party the wrong way, they don't understand constructive criticism, even when it sounds harsh. Yes. Because something that is uncomfortable to hear does not necessarily mean that it is bad. Because it is ventilated in a public forum does not necessarily mean that it is bad, because the only reason some of the comrades are hearing it, it is because of where it is ventilated. And so what will happen is that they will be frustrated if they're not able to hear it in Stafford. Here's the method in that madness. If you're out there and you don't know that there is turmoil taking place at the level of the executive and the NEC and the decision-making levels. If you're out there, but you're just a foot soldier, and you're going out there and you're just working, and JLP beating us, and you cannot understand it, you know what? We're going to continue to say, oh, it's buy them, buy it. Well, guess what? More and more comrades would be not turning up at the polls because they're disenchanted, either because their own local representatives, whether MP or councillor, not really paying them the mind, not really serving them well, them just not feeling like them being treated well. Sometimes they have real problems, their struggles are real, but them have nobody in the party to reach out to. And if they're out there and they're feeling this way, and election come and them say, you know what, MP now do nothing for me, I'm in to become my MP or my council not working for me, that sort of thing. And they choose not to go, and their families follow suit. Sometimes it's the influential ones in families or in a voting bloc that takes this position, or their kids say to them, what PMP do for you how long, and that sort of thing, and they stay home. What we will then do, because we don't know that there is something happening at leadership levels, and when I say leadership level, not just the leader per se, but the decision-making organs like executive and NEC, then because the strength is not there, because we're so fractious there, but you don't get to see it, and then the polls turn out a particular way, it frustrates you on the ground.
Yes.
But if you're able to appreciate and understand the conversation, and you see the challenges we're having, then guess what happened? You get to win. The only way you get to win in Stafford is because some of these discussions are now taking place in a space that you can participate through social media. And trust me, I'm sure you know that they're now hearing your voices. It never used to be that comrades' voices had to come through social media. It used to come through groups. Right. But groups are no longer real. Groups are not even meeting. And that sort of thing. So it's a new era. Social media has its good side and its bad side for political organizations. The JLP does not have the same framework as the PNP. And so the PNP has to find ingenious ways and find creative ways of ensuring that we represent the voice of the comrades across the length and breadth of Jamaica. You don't have to like my personality, because all of us have varying personalities. One of the things I said to people, if you see my phone, if I should show you the things that people reach out, some cussing, some crying, some encouraging. So it's a mixed bag. And I say to everybody, whether you're cussing, ask everybody who has texted me cussing me. I've said to them, do not expect us to trade off. Don't expect disrespect from me. I'll never disrespect my comrades like that. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not one of the persons, by the way, Stafford. I think I don't know. You said you've known my father. I don't know which side I get it from, but I am never fettered by criticism, no matter how harsh it comes. So sometimes people say, you have no shame. And I'm like, not really. Politically, I have no shame. Stafford, I've been in the trenches. I have engaged labor rights in ways that would make your head spin. But I'm friends with them, and some comrades even get vexed and even suspicious. And I understand the suspicion, because remember, we're coming from a very tribal space into a space now where we have to move away from tribalism, so that comrades understand that when PNP is in government, it is not a government for the PNP. It is a government for Jamaica. It is a recipe for disaster when we promote divisiveness in our country in a way that once somebody is a labor right, you have nothing to do with them. Sometimes that somebody is your family member. Sometimes it's your pitney. And so you have to understand how to manage your relationship with somebody who does not share the same political view as yourself. Stafford, let me tell you, I'm an unapologetic rebel. Just get that.
I know that.
Adjutants are important in every society. Just let's get that clear. Adjutants are going to be there. Provocateurs are going to be there. You don't have to like the messenger. It's the message. We have a culture that over time will take care of itself. And a lot of our comrades, initially in the Stafford, you see, when at the first time I stand up against Sister P in the NEC, like I come out against my boss, they don't know. At the end of the night, when I go on the phone with her, she said, look at how we talk today about, that sort of thing. Those who are close to her will know that probably when she drives out, if you are in her car as our security or an assistant, you will probably know that I'm on the phone with her, maybe. Or later on, if you're in her company, you'll be thinking, so why is she even talking to Venesha when Venesha just did that? But that's because she understood that we all don't think the same way. And she never dismisses stuff. She doesn't have to agree with it. By the way, Dr. Phillips was the very same. I remember one day Dr. Phillips blasted myself and Taz in an executive. I think every executive member remember that. I think everybody expected to see me on Bunting's team because Dr. Peter Phillips, when I say blast me, him blast me. And I said, party leader, I'm not sitting down because I believe that you are wrong on this one. And I held my ground, and Taz and I shared the same view at the time in terms of just how we were treating with some stuff in the party. And Taz and I were blasted by Dr. Phillips. When I was finished, I hugged my boss because he's my boss. And at the end of the day, that is why, as a YO coming up, we're vanguards for change. Our views are not always going to conform, but it is not designed to hurt. I know some people say, yeah, why you have to do it outside, make labor rights see? Part of the problem is if you keep on pushing something under the carpet. You see, Stafford, who does it help? Because you see, you, the comrades on the ground out there, you might feel the very same way or hold the same view, Yes. And you don't even know whether or not we understand or appreciate this at the decision-making level. And so sometimes many times I make a point and people say, at the point really not us afraid, I'm afraid to liberate or use it against us. No, it shows maturity when you can have a discussion and dissent. I'll take you to a very vexed issue of the PNP. When the outer many situation came up, I was in America. As a matter of fact, I spoke to no less a person at the time than the chairman of the party, Comrade Bobby Pickers-Gill. And I realized that he shared my view.
Wow.
And I was like, so why you not say it then? I kind of say chairman, because, I call him chairman for life. So Mr. Chairman for life, why you not just say it? You are there. I was away. So I said, boss, you did it, but missed the NEC. But I said, if you guys don't address it, I'm going to address it from my Facebook page. And the next night, I think I did just that. I think at the time, Angela Brownberg as well was somewhere else across the world, and so too Julian. Three of us, not in concert, we never spoke on it, did the exact same thing. I think Julian did on his page, Angela did on her page, and I did on mine. But I think the language I used, and I understand Julian and Angela being officers at the time, but I am cognizant that I'm also communicating, which communication is an art. I'm also communicating with the people on the ground. My comrades must be able to appreciate the thing in the context in which they're designed. I don't want them to just be echo chamber members running with a one-liner from the party. That's not the PNP Michael Manley envisaged. He wanted us to have our own minds. I read out something from him the other day about, the liberties of our people, because it is within that space of liberty that comrades will be able, and Jamaicans will be able to basically see their very best selves emerge. So I said that to say, Stafford, that I think the party got this one wrong on Karen. Just to go to that, which is where I got to when I spoke to you about that. To say when I saw that was a tipping point for me to say to Mr. Hill, listen, my man, set an independent seat for me. I think it is time for me to step away a little bit and to see what direction the PNP really wants to go in. And it was on that basis that I engaged the mayor and asked that I be given an independent chair. I did call some key comrades from Papi Division, and I did in fact say to them, look, this is how I feel about this. And they, those I've spoken to, I must admit I haven't spoken to all of them. I haven't engaged them as a divisional body. What I did, I called the key influencers and I said to them, look, I feel sufficiently strongly about this, guys. Even if it upsets you, it is a decision I must make in your interest, even if you don't agree with it.
All right, on that ground, on that note, elections, are you planning on running again for in the local government elections?
No, man, I had served notice in Stafford from long before, from Dr. Phillips had taken over. And when he sat with me, I think he probably sat with different people at different times. I indicated to him a personal timeline that I have. While I've not been very expressive about time limits and term limits, I've not been very public about my view on that. I do hold a view in terms of leadership in this way. And I did, in fact, but not only because of that, but also because I had some personal, things that I want to be able to achieve. Yes. So I did, in fact, from almost 2 years out. had indicated to the party that this would have been my last term as councillor. Whether I'd gone for the seat or I didn't go for the seat, I definitely would not have gone back. Whether there was transition in leadership or Dr. Phillips was still there, I would not have gone back as councillor. I also had indicated to them that if it was that we won the constituency when I went up for Eastern, that I would probably only be able, and it would have to be extreme circumstances, that I would be able to go beyond the term because of my own personal, things that I want to accomplish in my life, because we have to set ourselves some personal targets. I would have done that. I hold a law degree, and I know the media had said I'm going to law enforcement, but there are some things that I want to do with that. And I gave myself a particular age timeline to deal with some things. And let me tell you, Stafford, I'm a comrade who does not have to be I don't have to be on NEC executive. I don't have to be a councillor or MP. I don't have to hold an office to be a worker for my party. I'm a foot soldier of the People's National Party. And so whether or not I would not have gone as councillor, I definitely would not have gone for the seat again a second time, at this time anyway, because I would have had to deal with those personal, accomplishment things that I really want to see through for my own, what does Maslow's satisfaction. Yeah.
So you have somebody that you have in place ready for the election that is due. It's expected around February of next year, I think. I think that's the thing that's been thrown around.
I've heard the dates bandied about. I always say to PNP, from when Sister P was here and we were in opposition, I said to the party, again, these things are in the record, When we're not in charge of the government, we should not sit around and predict election dates. We should just prepare for elections whenever they are called.
What I really wanted to ask you, is there somebody ready, standing?
My understanding, I do know that there was a process where they were doing a selection, and I think they might have already completed that process. I was observing that process up to a point. I know that there were applicants and interviews, and I think they might have chosen a candidate. Where they are with that, to be honest. I know that I heard there was a young lady who was selected, but in terms of whether that's a settled question, I really don't know because I've not tried to find out.
All right, let me rush through a little bit faster because our time is going. How do you feel? The party, to me, it's fractured. Do you think it can be fixed? How can it be fixed?
The PNP is a resilient organization, but for that resilience to actually materialize, then you're really going to have real commitment on the part of those who are leading it. In this particular case, I'm not going to cast any aspersions at Mark Golding. I've been very specific in my criticisms about him, which I'm unrelenting about, by the way. Let me just get that categorically clear. His disposition as of now, from where I sit, I don't see him in a mood or mind that would want to do what is necessary to make sure that the PNP is able to get to steady ground. Notice I'm staying clear of unity word, steady ground, because unity will only come where trust obtains, right? Steady ground. And you don't have to have unity to have steady ground. But I don't know that Mark is interested in pursuing steady ground, because if you look at what just happened, and I can only go from third-party information reported to me out of the recent elections as late as yesterday, from Region 3 alone, what I've been told, that tells me that he is still on a blockout or shutout campaign where only people who supported his cause or his bid are, being pushed or advanced. What he should have done was use those very elections yesterday to demonstrate that he is now willing to merge all the different factions in order to be able to find that steady ground that I just raised with you.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what happened yesterday? Because I'm not familiar with that. What is it that happened yesterday?
Well, again, let me just make sure to tell you that whatever I'm going to say regarding yesterday would be reported. So it's all third-party information. I did not myself attend any of the voting centers, nor did I participate in the process. But from what I not only read on social media, but from messages and phone calls, my understanding is that persons would have voted for persons to sit for the next political year on the NEC. Persons would have been nominated at the regional level and stuff. and the elections took place yesterday in Region 3, I'm told that how the campaigns lined up is not unlike how we've done it over the years where people run slates. But these are not the same times as the years before. The state of brokenness that we're in is what should have essentially informed how the Mark Golding supporters approached this. And this should have been given through guidance from the center to say, look, we, as much as we would want just ourselves on the body and stuff, we're going to need everybody if we're going to go into an election. So, let us try and balance it as much as possible. Even if they wanted to agree on those persons who never supported them and include them in a slate that would make it balanced so that you could send a signal, because it's not just about the individuals there, it's about the signal you're sending out across to those looking on to say, whoa, how did this one make it or that one make it? You get what I'm saying? Because the one or two that I can identify who never supported Mark, who made it, would have made it anyway. I'm telling you, whether because of relationships they hold with persons who supported Mark, or because people know that these are really the people who contribute in any seat. The other thing that bothers me about that Stafford, and I've always said this, again, prior to Mark, when I look at the composition, I find it troubling. And let me tell you why I find it troubling. I was one of them ones who fight to go on NEC and executive for two reasons. When I first went on the executive, I felt sad. I was excited to go, and when I got there, I was sad. Why was I sad? Because the level of the discussion that I wanted to be engaged in, or I anticipated, would have been, how we would have been engaging in it. And based on my understanding of what would have gone on in prior times, probably the earlier days of Comrade Portia Simpson Miller, and definitely during PJ Patterson's time, and you'd have heard about the Michael Manley time. Basically, what you saw and what you heard out of those times made you want to go. You couldn't wait to get to the point where you would get there to have your voice registered as part of constructive discussions that would benefit Jamaica. When I got on, I didn't find that we were having the kind of quality discussion that I thought that as a party at our age that we should have been having. And when I look at the composition now of the NEC, and I was sad. Don't think that because I say, okay, I'm moving my chair to an independent chair in council mean that I'm a comrade and I go live and die a comrade. And the fact of the matter is, yes, my membership would cease in terms of being a financial member. I still have access to the public forums of the PNP that nobody can stop. That's what that means in English, So I see even a general secretary who, by the way, should not even be excited to lose any member of the party, but you should want because all of us have an audience. All of us. And that's what the PNP want. We want to have evangelists on the ground with the message of the PNP. But Stafford, you tell me, because you're closer to the center, what is that message?
Well, I'm not going to say anything right now because I don't want to deflect it onto me. It will be good. I know it is obvious there is a problem.
There is.
And that's where I'm going to go next. And probably I'll try to say a little bit more. But I'm working on your time, and I don't want to lose not even 1 minute if it's right.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
So, there's a talk out there, and I heard something that some kind of ultimatum or some condition was issued or given to Mark to say, hey, fix this, settle this down. I don't know what would happen if I didn't get a part of the story. Do you know about that? And about some MPs giving out some kind of, I don't want to go say ultimatum, but might have put out a request to Mark to say, hey, fix this. We're giving you 30 days to fix. Have you heard about that?
Since I was not in any such room, I can only tell you that I would have heard what you have heard. And certainly I don't know who you heard from, but I would have made a post to that effect as well on my social media because it was a heartening post. And I want to trust, and I'm able, I shouldn't say I want to, I'm 100% able to trust the source from which it came. In terms of, and I don't know if it is in the words you think, I might have even used those words on my social media page, but certainly it is my understanding that the MP group would have met, whether through a delegation or as a body, with Mark Golding to say, look, this thing has gone far enough and you have got to cauterize it now, or some action will have to be taken as a collective. that for me was heartening because let me tell you, Stafford, I have been worried about the PNP since Mark. Since Mark, I'll tell you why. I see something that I accused wholeness of manifesting itself in Norman Mandel, Michael Mandel's party. I see that kind of bullyism creeping in my party that bothers me.
A kind of siagerism.
If you want to call it that. But I say, I call it what I want to call it. I call it bullyism. You understand what I mean? And by the way, what happened with Karen is also, what I consider to be part of that bullyism. Because at the end of the day, and let me tell you why it's so serious what happened with Karen. So you should probably one of the day dedicate one of your programs to it. I think the Golden-led executive took this position, even though it was not a recommended position, for one reason. The same reason, and I'm going to be as brutal as I can now. Is it the same reason them boy out the road shoot people in a broad daylight in front of other people? The purpose of that is to drive fear into the other people who witness it, right? So they would not be tempted to do anything about, the situation that obtains in their area. I read it the same way. I believe that is why that was done. I think, Mark, they believe that if we went for somebody as vociferous as Karen, then it would send, it would shut down the
any dissent
and stuff. But get me tell you something. I don't know about Karen. Karen and I never sit on the same page on anything when we're in the party. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a joke. I used to carry Karen name to executive all the time. That's the funny thing, I used to carry Karen Cross's name to executive all the time. And I would call her afterwards and we would have a conversation about that. She said, "Oh, I heard." And I would be like, yes. Because whatever I say behind her, I'm usually able to say it to her. And that obtains with anybody. It doesn't matter if it is Karen or not, because that's just who I am. And I'll tell you this, that when I remember when I heard that I think I read it first, that she was expelled, I called her phone. And I said to her, you know the difference between you and I, eh? Let me just tell you, I'm suicidal. Because you don't get to threaten me. Do not do that. Don't bully me. Because if you do that, you are going to have to go all the way. I don't play bullyism. You are better off engaging me. No, my dear. Stafford, I try to live a good life. And I try to live a balanced life with people and relationships. So you know what? I think I've had a lot of fun in my time. For my age. So I have no problem departing this world because I would have gone a happy girl. As long as I do it, I go doing something I love. So if I die from a party, so be it. That's how I feel. Do not threaten me. I take a serious aversion to people who think that brute force is a solution to anything. And maybe that is why when I was on the ground in my division, sometimes I came into blows with the guys on the ground because, I just felt like, hey, hear me, man. You see, if you do your thing and somebody talk and you don't like it, just brace. But don't go like you want come threaten me because I'm not play that with no guy. Let alone my party. I don't do that. Good? So when I saw that with Karen, I thought, I get your message. But I know, Karen, if we have to go to courthouse it is. If we have to come to Rockstone it is. But at the end of the day, I will speak when I need to speak on issues that I believe are perplexing enough. And it is as simple as that. Because people have a right to their voice and we have a duty to protect their voices. We don't even have to like what they say. They don't even have to like us. We don't have to like them. But we have a duty as the People's Party to preserve democracy. And what happened? Indiscipline can be dealt with in different ways if you consider something indiscipline in the context of your constitution. But you don't come from an emotive place because your ego is bruised. That's nonsense. We're not a party here to genuflect at your ego. We're a party here to build Jamaica, to give people a better life so that comrades and Jamaicans, whether they're comrades, laborers, or whoever, can not just be happy and be able to maintain and balance their family lives, but they can live in peace and stability. That's who we're supposed to be as a People's National Party, and that's not who we are now.
That's why I call you ladies my warrior queens, because you remind me of one of my favorite warriors, Queen Nzenga from the African continent.
Africa, yes.
Yes. I see you in the same field as Nani, and even down to her mother, Portia Simpson Miller.
Portia is my boss.
Yeah. And you know, it brings me then to a point where, how do you feel about these MPs who they have it in their hands to bring an end to this, what I term madness, because it's a kind of
madness. It is it's madness. It is madness. It is madness.
How do you feel about the MPs? And you might even have friends there too, so you have to go be brutal with them too.
Oh gosh, they'll tell you that they're not short on that from me. Stafford, let me tell you, when I became and I'm saying this way, when I became a candidate, I got a different kind of baptism. Being a councillor is a snapshot. That's what that is. When you take on a constituency, I understand the dynamics that will obtain. I understand how you have to actually have a different level of maturity and temperance. Just trust me. You need the patience part, bad, right? But I also understand that to whom much is given, much is expected. So once you decide to walk that road, then you would have had to purpose within yourself that, the responsibility is awesome. So I can't evaluate all, and when you speak, I probably would have to answer in a general way, all who are there. I can't say what exactly obtains in their individual constituencies. That, I believe, is a verdict to be pronounced upon by the people who work with and vote for them. But I do know that on the bigger picture of the party, in terms of their response to the situation and the power that would reside with them to help us to bring normalcy back to our party stage, I believe that they would have been very slow to act. That could be because some will say, but Venesha, you shoot off the cuff. But I believe that 9 months into Mark's office, not seeing the turn in the tide in terms of direction to the place of balance, I see no action coming out of them. When I engage, around them, people around them, but not them directly, what I ask people is, what are your views about the inaction of persons who are sitting there? And it probably would not be prudent for me to share some of the responses that came, but suffice it to say, if you're asking me to basically comment on whether or not they have been assertive enough in helping us right here, I don't think so. But like I said, you and I won't know all that they're doing behind the scenes, because as I imagine, it's the culture at that level to try to see as best as possible how you can deal with it behind those closed doors. Trust me, Stafford, like Dean Peart and I would have come to discover, sometimes the closed door effect is probably what exacerbates your problems. It makes things more complicated sometimes when those doors are shut, because maybe when what you can't do, the people behind you will be able to do for you. And that sometimes just must be the way. So if passivity doesn't work, if when you're being passive, it doesn't, get you where you want to go, then you must reevaluate and find another way. Because if you keep doing the same things the same way, you will get the same result. So if you ask me, I don't know what they're doing, but from where I sit, I'm not sure I'm happy with what they're doing, because whatever they're doing is not working.
Okay. All right, say that we're going to look at it in a utopian type of way. If we were able to, something should happen, Mark might say, okay, you know what, I'm tired of this complaining, people are not happy, I'm going to step aside, that's one condition. Or if they say 8 to 11 of these MPs build some kind of backbone and they say, you know what, we're going to just do what we have to do, because this is not going anywhere. And I'm telling them they're heading down to the pits of hell with what they're doing right now.
Right.
And if you want, that's one of my opinion when you ask me how do I feel. And that's what I'm picking up. It's going nowhere. You have some sycophantic kind of people who, I don't know, they're trying to win some brownie points and they will say some stuff. But is there someone, if we were to be able to bring it to some place where we could say, okay, Mark is out, we want to put somebody here, who would be your ideal, or somebody who you think would come in right away and pull people back together? Is there someone in your head?
I'll tell you what we shouldn't do. When you ask me if there's someone in my head, I'll answer you this way. The PNP is never short on persons who can actually lead not just the party, but Jamaica.
Let's say some of them, maybe say three people.
Let me tell you, it is unhelpful to do what you're suggesting. Leaders will emerge based on, but I'll tell you, in the landscape that we are now, Stafford, if you try that, for example, if you were to say, let's call a name of somebody who's not now there. So if you were to say Basil Waite, now I'm just picking a name out of the air. If you were to say Basil Waite, then Basil's political future tomorrow would start to, yes, because that's the nature of the beast that we're dealing. Yes, because people now want to say, people start look at him as leader, let's axe him now. That has been the direction that we have taken. It's a path of self-destruction, unfortunately, but it is the way things have been going in our party. But to answer you, persons are there. Persons are there to do this. Let me just say this to you, Stafford. Whether Mark did defeat Lisa or not, Mark could have been a leader that we could have supported if Mark was a different person. Let us just be clear on that.
True.
Because one of the things, I say to people all the time, make no mistake, Mark Golden can never tell anybody, say, me and him never have nothing yet. Because me and Mark Golden never have nothing personal yet. Ever. You understand what I mean? I've taken him to task over stuff he has said that I don't agree with the meetings. But that don't mean that we have a problem, because we don't. So none of this is personal to Mark. None. So notice when I say what I just said, I'll allow you to make the point. Mark could have been if his disposition was a different one. So as not to eliminate him as part of that bigger process, it is just to say to you, Bunting could have been if Bunting had taken a different path. So I'm just saying, within each of these persons we have in the party, however, there are some fundamental problems that I would have with Mark Golden based on Mark's utterances and not anything I've heard, but from anybody else, but what I've heard out of Mark, because I sat next to him when he said it. So in terms of that, for me, it has always, even before he entered the race, disqualified him until he would have basically either qualified or walked back statements he would have made in relation to the political philosophy of the party. But to say to you that we have persons, you have loads of persons there, whether they're in the parliament, because remember, they don't have to come from within there right now, but whether they're in the parliament or they're not in the parliament at the moment, and we have people both in the parliament and outside of the parliament right now who can actually effectively lead the PNP and bring us back to a place where we can be a formidable force in this country that people can trust again. We do have that within us, and that's the richness that the PNP has, that we must know, we have that as a party, and we need to now harness that. Can we get over what's going on now to get to that place before an election is called?
I don't want to stay too much longer on him, but what do you think it is with Mark Golden? Is it that he misunderstood his role? Is it that he doesn't have any idea of what it is that he should be doing, how he brings people? What is it?
Well, from where I sit, I've made it categorically clear. I've been saying it before the race happened, and I'm continuing to say it. Two things. One, he made some statements at a meeting when we were dealing with the progressive agenda, that he regarded political, when we were talking about democratic socialism, he categorically get up and said that that's not who we are now. Even though the Constitution said that that's who we are. He said that. By the way, you can research that. Type it into Google and Observer will come up. The story was actually written because so profound it was that obviously, I think back then it was Erica Virtue who wrote that because she probably thinks, so then, you're in a PNP that said the values or the virtues of the PNP are relevant or it not exist. So what is it now then? So he had said at the time that democratic socialism was not something that we should continue to advance, and that it had a place in its time, whenever that time was. He was linking that time to the time of Michael Manley, and even said that, well, maybe for that period it had served us well, but that's definitely not who we are now, which is what he said. And he said that it's definitely not what we should pursue either, because that will exclude some people. No, every organization have their principles and their core values. And when we endear people to that organization, it's because they share our core principles and core values. And you cannot throw out your values because you want to attract some people. That don't make no sense, right? So then, from that place, I have always said to the party, from Sister P sat in that chair when they wanted Mark to become an officer of this party, He was supposed to be an officer when I said, but this is a brother who just tell we say democratic socialism no make no sense, and it's a divisive label. So how do you then have him on the officer core of the party? But they went ahead because, the eyes would have it. And but my dissent was registered then. So when you ask me now what it is that I think about Mark, I think Mark's real problem is because he don't believe in a democratic socialism. So what I'm finding now is that him in this chair with a whole heap of people. Some say them are socialists, some say them are democratic socialists. And the truth is that he is of a capitalist mind. And, some people will argue, because I had a discussion today, I said, but then PJ might have been of a capitalist mind. I said, but every time him get up on a platform, and if you look at the policies that came out of the PNP under Patterson, you cannot suggest in any way that those were capitalist policies. Those were people-centered policies. If you talk about housing, it was monumental. I remember when nobody wanted, just up the road, people were arguing about whether or not who you were going to take next door to Beverly Hills into Pines of Karachi. Now everybody wants a piece of laptop Pines of Karachi because it's a piece of the grand old Beverly Hills. But the People's National Party under Patterson thought that, the hardworking people of this country, the public servants, the police, the teachers, the lawyers, the doctors, all of the people who are the nurses, the basic school teacher should be able to call a piece of that property them own. And so putting back land in the hands of the people of Jamaica is something that Comrade Patterson saw as critical. That wasn't a capitalist approach. That was a very socialist, you understand what I mean, approach. When we went for the rapid response water project, when a lot of standpipes used to be across Jamaica, these are not the discussions we're having in Stafford. This is what we need to use to reignite our base. When you used to go country, although we used to love it, you could have stopped on a standpipe on the road and wash your hand. But what did that mean for the people in the country? It means the potable water was not at them yard. They had to go at that standpipe or catch your water. So while me, mind because it's cooler down there, we had to consider the fact that the people who lived in those areas had to go there to catch their water when we who operate in the urban centers would have water piped into our homes. And so through the rapid response program, through the program with Dr. Blight being in charge of water and stuff like that, you saw pipelines going in, you saw water going into homes, and so the People's National Party would again deliver a critical service for the people of Jamaica. When you talk about motor vehicle, it used to be that it was a luxury, Stafford. Now people understand it's a necessity. When Comrade Patterson opened up the motor vehicle licensing thing, when you could bring in cars up to a certain year old, I remember because I went on a program the night with Winston Witter, where Mr. Siaga actually said, we not have no road. To do that. But you know what? It was vision on the part of the PNP led by Patterson at the time that said, listen to me, man, the road will come, but allow the small man, because taxi men used to drive for people and they used to have to work Sunday to Sunday. Now most taxi men own them car. The truth is that development takes, vision and that sort of thing. And it has to put people at the center. So the PNP had at its very center the people. Mark Golding, on the other hand, by saying that he does not believe in those principles, then what would we be putting to the people of Jamaica?
Let me say this to you. I promised to get you out of here in 30 minutes. I said 20 minutes. I know it was not possible.
It's fine. Because you see, when you're talking PNP business, it's almost like when you're in church. And you must know I'm a church girl, You see, when you talk about God, sometimes you get so emotional and you can't contain yourself. It's the same way I felt about my PNP. The PNP I'm talking about is not the PNP that you're seeing today. But when you start talking about the real PNP, will make everything in your body just boil. It feel like when Christians tell us the Holy Spirit attack them. So for me, that was the place that was home for me. This is not it right now. So maybe I need to retreat to the mountain, which is in the gallery, that chair of independence in the council, to sit down and say, God, give me the pre. Show me how to get to the comrades on the ground through political education, because whether I sit in an independent chair in council or not, I'm going to assist in providing comrades with the information that they need, the facts, no propaganda, nothing. You're going to take it from those books written by Manley and others who would have supported the principles of democratic socialism and why it is so important. In the very America you are, I can't understand how PNP not see it. When I look at the Teen Vogue, I posted it on my page, young people, 30s, 20s, are basically championing the cause of democratic socialism because they're now understanding that they were fed propaganda. They were given this fear that this is what It was, and it was something that would make you have to be almost on your knees all your life and can't grow. But then they realized that no, this is about putting people at the center. It is not a PNP virtue, because some of the programs that Wholeness doing are democratic socialist programs.
He stole a lot of it from.
Oh, and can you blame him? He's a politician. Can you blame him? So when I see programs that are supposed to be pushed by PNP being advanced by owners, you think I can lick them program there when I know it is supposed to benefit Jamaicans? We as PNP know to dig out them program there and make sure so people have a benefit, because those were our thought processes. You don't just hand them over to Labour Rights and say, what you know, no copy we. No, you say to people, those programs were conceptualized here. Go out and maximize. When I see owners of Bill House now, I can't cuss him. I say you learn from the best. Yeah. And I say to comrades everywhere, apply and own a piece of this rock because of your own. So I can't have a cuss owners about house. So when I see comrades saying, you laugh up with Labour Rights, no, I smile because I said to owners, you're a good student, and you couldn't learn from your own Labour Rights. They not PMP you have to learn from. So you might as well make me send you the sheet with Jamaica Rise. And you put on an orange shirt and come cross, yes, because there's room at the PNP cross for even Labour Rights. So I want comrades to get at the place where you don't need to be antagonistic to Labour Rights. I banter with Gillette, I banter with Mayor and all of my Labour Rights. When I'm talking to them, they say, you, Ben, you, and I say, Labour Rights. Because the truth be told, we are Jamaicans essentially. You must have friends who are Labour Rights, Stafford, and your politics must never cross your friendship borders. Always remember that. I don't ever put my ideological, impose it on others. I can only give them the light and hope that they see it and follow the path. But I don't judge them for it.
You know what you remind me of when I was a child, and you get your Sunday dinner, the rice and peas and the chicken, and it's nice, and you don't want to eat it off one time, and you put some aside till later on. That is you. I'm going to put up some of this for later on. And I want to say, me personally, talking to you now, and I've always heard you and seen you out there and everything, but I'm putting you up as one of the candidates to lead this party.
Oh, no, you need some people on the ground. You need some people on the ground. Me's a foot soldier. Me's a warrior for PMP. You need some people on the ground. Me's a on the ground person.
You have it. That's why you have it. You have it, and I'm putting you out there, and they can't touch you because you stepped away from the mother house.
Sometimes you have to pull back in order to be able to let the movement go forward. And so that's why I decided to sit independent, yes.
I'm going to put up some of this for later. And I'm going to say to the people, we were listening to the most dynamic, effervescent Venesha. I also got the E and the A
wrong. It's Venesha. I can be cross and angry to you, not because I'm always smile, but even when I cross, I smile,
Sister P was no angel when you cross.
No, I don't profess to be, and I don't want to be Stafford. I'm sorry, but I'm not one of those persons.
When the people call you, when the people call you, you'll have to answer. I'm telling you right now. We were speaking with this Venesha Phillips. She is a councillor with the KSAC Kingston and St. Andrews Corporation. Yes. And she has been a long time comrade, a long time member of the People's National Party. She has stepped back, pulled back to go up into the mountains to go reflect and to see where she goes next. I just learned she's a lawyer now.
We'll get there. So I have my law degree. I'm going to make sure I turn that now into council. Okay. So among other things. You have somebody who knew your father would be very proud of you. When you left, how old were you, by the way? Actually, I remember so well that, how old was I? I have to ask John Jr., because it was during John's time. I was still at Rollington Town.
So you're a baby,
No, I did in grade 6.
Yeah, you're a baby.
I did a big money ready for going to high school.
You hardly knew the man, but okay.
No, sir, all when him come back here, it's me and my father did up on the road. You see, and if he did listen to me, he probably wouldn't dead, but he hears hard. But probably that's where I get that from. No, man, I'm a daddy man. I'll tell you this. I hear people talk about, and I don't glamorize the fact that my father went to prison. I hear people talk about, well, DK told me something that I'll hold because I have my own views about my father having gone into the penal system because he went to prison for 6 years.
What? What
Yes.
did it come out?
My father, he would have gone to prison for 6 years. And, I remember I held that against,
No, I'm saying,
unlike some people.
what is the, if you don't mind saying, what was the...
No, I don't want to go
don't
down
wanna
that
go there.
road.
All
Yeah,
right.
but suffice it to
Just
say.
thinking it might be ganja or one of them kind of stuff.
No, it wasn't that. But suffice it to say that I remember having a conversation with DK Duncan because he called me to have the conversation because he said he heard me say something about my father being, disappointed me in terms of that. And he said to me, I didn't understand it. That's why I made a comment. And then he told me something that has never left me. So, but I'll tell you what I remember very well. I don't know where in the world Errol Cook would be now, or even if he's alive, but anywhere he is, God bless him. When my father was incarcerated, and they would send the clothes out on a Sunday. The clothes would come out, and in his pants foot, wrapped up, would be letters to me religiously. To me, not to my other siblings, to me. And I was young.
Yes.
Probably one of his youngest at the time. And in those letters, Stafford, I'm able to speak. My command of the English language today is because of those letters. My father spoke well. By the way, my father could cook well, So as a pitney, he used to cook, by the way. He used to cook, not my mother. And so my mother lived across the road from in Magra Gully, just across the other house. And so my father used to do the cooking as well. But when he was incarcerated, Stafford, he would send out these letters. And then he would say in the letters that I needed to read them aloud. So I had to stand on the veranda. Auntie Dada, who's now deceased, who was like the lady who raised him, not his maternal mother, because my grandmother lived in the UK, who we were very in touch with until she died in 2004. I would have to read those letters, Stafford, and he was my teacher. And so he would explain what enunciation was. He would explain the importance of my making sure that my diction, the first time I saw the word diction, I saw it in a letter from my dad. Yes. And so he insisted, and he said something else that never left me, by the way. In one of those letters, he said, I saw the picture of you, and you're growing fast, and you're even more beautiful than when I left you. And I remember this. And he said to me, pretty girls have to be bright girls in order to make it. So there were some lessons in everything that he did, but he insisted on one thing. I had to speak English and speak it well. I had to read and that sort of thing. And there was this other thing. He had an obsession with teeth, which I still have. So my father said that even though they tell you 3 times a day, he would say every time you eat. So he insisted that I would brush my teeth every time I would, consume anything. And I would cross my legs at my ankles. So I'm telling you, Stafford, it's very weird that when people talk about, I've heard Dayton even talk about, his dad being incarcerated. And I recall mine in a different way, though I don't speak about it, because this is probably the first time I'm speaking about it publicly. And I'm just saying to you that he was a father even from, his prison walls. Really? And I got lessons in those letters. I read those letters every Sunday, standing on the veranda, and I had to write back because he insisted that I write back. And so when we chat patois, that's just me being me out there now because I'm all grown. But when I reflect on my dad, as imperfect as he was, then it is about my making sure that there is poise, that I deliver myself in a way that he would appreciate, because he insisted that I have a command of the language that would allow me to be able to give a good account of myself. So, while you can bounce from any platform, from the sidewalk to the hills, the reality is that kind of balance is something that I would have gotten from my dad. My mother never spoke much. She still doesn't speak much today. She's a recluse. But my father was that kind of flamboyant character, quite colorful indeed. As you said, you knew him. Yeah. But somebody, if you really knew him well, Stafford, he was wedded to his books. He read a lot. Yeah, to the very day.
He's from a good era. He's from the same era as me. And that's
so I can't help myself if books are really my best friends. And so if this is what I bring to the table, to be able to help comrades to actually understand what they read, or to read to them, in 2021. That is what I'm prepared to do. So you see, at the end of the day, I mean, it is because of those socialist and democratic socialist principles that for me has become everything in terms of who I am. And I want to make sure that I make that contribution as I go forward.
With that, I'm going to say again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending more than an hour with me, about 5 minutes over. So, and I didn't have to fight you. And I could listen to you all night. Thank you, Miss Venesha Phillips. Councillor
Thank you.
Venesha Phillips. Thank you.